Can you explain what ConnectFor is, what it does, and what the mission is?
ConnectFor is a platform. We started it as a tech platform, the Naukri.com or the Shadi.com of volunteering, where we're trying to make.
But what was amazing for us is that the kids were present when we were doing this. And they were so excited while we were doing it. They were like, oh, यहाँ पे आप ये बनाएंगे, oh, यहाँ पे stumps बनाना, हम cricket खेलेंगे और ऐसे ही बनाना. And we got so happy just seeing the immediate gratification.
Shloka Ambani and Maniti Shah.
Shloka Ambani and Maniti Shah.
Shloka Ambani and Maniti
Shloka
Shah.
Ambani and Maniti Shah.
How two young women from Mumbai have set out to change the face of volunteering in India.
And do you guys remember the first day when you had that brainwave, like, why don't we do something like this
Actually,
specifically?
very clearly, we were playing cards. And then Manati actually reached out to me because she was working at a bank and she was like, I'm not feeling like fulfilled. I feel like I need to do something that gives back.
Do you have specific recollections of the early days of ConnectFor?
I very clearly remember like number one being just no structure, and like I was there to create that structure, I think. So I very clearly remember like we just had a whiteboard and a marker.
So I called Manati and I was like, hey, if you're really sure about not doing consulting anymore, like why don't we do this together? Because she had all of the like professional acumen, I had all of the non-profit and like social sector interest, and I was like very confident that together both of us would be able to create something.
Has there been specific moments that you can remember where you've seen the impact of something you've done?
I remember speaking to a lady a long time ago, maybe 4, 5, 6 years ago now. She actually wrote to us being like, I signed up to ConnectFor at a really low point in my life. My husband had just passed away. He had suffered from cancer for a long time. And I was really clueless about what to do to fill my time and fill my life. And now I get to
think like, that Google form and that MVP was going to lead to this kind of change. So every school we paint, every time we clean a beach, it feels great. And honestly, I think we've been able to bring about some cultural shift in volunteering in India, I would like to say.
Your favorite aspect about working with each other?
It's very easy for me. Honestly, like, I think working with Manati was the number one best decision that I made. And I just was like, this is why we need to do this. Even if we help one person every day, this is why we need to do this. And so I think both from a company organization point of view, from the non-profits point of view, and the ultimate beneficiaries point of view, it's a much more rewarding, a much more long-term solution. And that's really our tagline at ConnectFor is win-win for all.
We have 75,000 volunteers, people who volunteer through ConnectFor. We've had them save 15 crore, a little over 15 crore rupees for the non-profit organizations through the work that they've done. And this is by giving about 318,000 hours worth of volunteering.
My guests today on the Krish Kothari show are Maniti Shah and Shloka Ambani. Maniti and Shloka run ConnectFor. I'm going to ask Maniti and Shloka to explain what ConnectFor does because, frankly, they do a much better job of it than I can. We speak about a number of things in the nonprofit space in India and the incredible work ConnectFor is doing to make that space larger and more effective. I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I did. You can now find the Krish Kothari show on the Zerodha Media Network. Maniti, Shloka, welcome to the Krish Kothari show. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you for
us.
having us.
First things I like doing is asking my guests to actually explain their own organizations because I think it does a great job for people listening to actually understand what the organization does, but also where the founders and operators of those organizations lay emphasis. So, Manasi, I'll start with you. Can you explain what ConnectFor is, what it does, and what the mission is?
Yeah, sure. So ConnectFor is a platform. We started it as a tech platform meant to match volunteers to NGOs. And Shloka always likes to describe ConnectFor. She says it's like the Naukri.com or the Shadi.com of volunteering, where we're trying to make perfect matches between a volunteer and an NGO. This was what our mission was and our vision was back in, I think, 2015 is when we started working on this, about 8 to 9 years ago. And I think it's grown a lot since then. And now I would describe ConnectFor as an aggregator in the nonprofit space or in the development sector, because we're doing a lot more than just matching volunteers to NGOs. I think we've sort of started understanding the needs of all our three key stakeholders, which is the corporates, volunteers, and NGOs. And we try to best help each of them by connecting them to the other stakeholder and being the middleman between the two parties. Because I think all three stakeholders are on a very different page regarding what their end goal is. Obviously, everybody's trying to make a difference and create impact, but we're just there to facilitate it better, make those connections, make those matches. And that's why ConnectFor.
No, I was just going to say exactly like Manati said. The only thing I would add is it's basically our vision then and now continues to be that ConnectFor becomes a platform which is a one-stop solution for anyone who's looking to do anything with volunteering, regardless of which stakeholder it is. And being in that aggregator position helps us manage everyone's expectations and needs effectively.
And do you guys remember the first time, so going back to 2015, that first day when you had that brainwave, like, why don't we do something like this? Do you remember that day specifically?
Actually, very clearly, we were playing cards, in fact. And one of our friends had just come back from a college in America, and they were like, I'm here for 3 months before my corporate job in America starts, and I need to do something. And Shloka, I was working with Rosie Blue Foundation at the time. You work in the nonprofit space, like, where can I go? And I was like, oh, there are so many NGOs. I'm sure they all need you. Like, just call any one of them. They'll be happy to have you. And he was like, actually, it's so difficult to get in touch with any of them that it's like impossible. And I feel like half my time is just going and calling people. They have no idea what they want me to do. I have no idea how it works. And so then I was thinking about it a lot at that time. And then Maniti actually reached out to me because she was working at a bank and she was like, I'm not feeling fulfilled. I feel like I need to do something to give back. Do you know where I can do that? And then I was like, this is the second query I've got in a month. And then I was working on the grant giving side, being like, I'm going to be the donor now. And I received a lot of proposals and I felt like, they could have been better written. I felt like nonprofits, I felt like a lot of the donor interest was going to the same nonprofits over and over again. And a lot of this was skewed by the CSR law that we have because, you had to have audited reports. You needed an annual report. You needed something to show your company the impact of the money you were spending.
Yeah.
So I was just like, there are so many talented people. If they get connected to these nonprofits who don't have the resources to hire someone to write a report or to audit something, then it would work out so well. And why doesn't this exist? And so I started researching, but it didn't exist in India at that time. And so I called Maniti and I was like, hey, if you're really sure about not doing consulting anymore, why don't we do this together? Because she had all of the professional acumen. I had all of the nonprofit and social sector interest. And I was very confident that together both of us would be able to create something that could alleviate this situation and respond to it. So
it's so funny. I remember that day so clearly, the first time when you were telling me about it. And I actually remember thinking, so I was doing a job I didn't particularly love. Not there's nothing wrong with the job. It's just not my interest. And I remember thinking to myself, once I got home that day, that she had such a clear vision in her head, and she was genuinely interested in what she was thinking of doing. And I was like, I don't feel even half as good about what I'm doing. Maybe even I need to course correct. But Manasi, do you have specific recollections of the early days of ConnectFor?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it was such a transition going from consulting to working on something of your own. Number one being just no structure, and I was there to create that structure, I think. So I very clearly remember my previous job was, obviously a lot of your viewers will relate to this, I'm guessing, where go in, somebody tells you what to do. I was probably crunching numbers, making Excel sheets, making tons of PowerPoints. And the next day, I'm in office with Shloka and she's like, so what do you want to do? And we just had a whiteboard and a marker and we had the vision. And then we had to literally start from there. So I remember I actually have a photograph of that the first whiteboard, that picture where we literally put down all our ideas. Okay, I think at that point, Shloka had read a book. I don't remember the name of it, which
The Lean Startup.
The Lean Startup, yes. And in that, they spoke about the MVP model, which is the minimum viable product. So we're like, okay, let's start small. Let's see if this works. Just to let you know, I never intended to do this for 9 years. The goal and the plan was
Right.
that for 6 months I'll do this and then I'll move back into like consulting or healthcare consulting or whatever it was that I wanted to do. So I'm like, okay, great, we'll set up this MVP and then my job will be done and then, it'll run by itself. So we set up an MVP, which was basically we created a Google form, just asking NGOs to submit their interest as to what would they need volunteers for. And then we went and met a bunch of NGOs. I think we met about 100 NGOs in October and November of 2015. Yeah. And then we met somebody who would, like a website developer who, would make a very basic version of our website so volunteers could register. And I think all of that was just so exciting, like seeing the website come live. Our website went live on 5th December, 2015. And I remember on 4th December night at like, it was World Volunteering Day on
Okay.
5th December. So we really wanted it to go live. And I remember on the fourth night, it was like not ready to go live. And we were like calling each other, like, okay, do you think it'll be ready? Will it happen? So I think that excitement of like building something of your own and see it come to life is really what's been driving me and till date, I'd say.
I want to talk about how ConnectFor actually helps its three external stakeholders, right? Like you said, there's volunteers, there's the nonprofits, and then there's the corporate side as well. Can you explain to me that, let's say I'm a corporate and I come to you and I say, okay, I have 100 rupees that I want to spend on a particular, say, it could be, I want to spend it on early education, animal welfare, whatever my interest happens to be. And I come to you and say, I know nothing, I have the money. How do you, in that situation, how do you guys help the corporates spend their money as effectively as they can?
Sure, you then. Okay, I'm gonna answer this question in two parts. So, we ideally what we would like them to do is look at CSR more holistically. So not only be like, okay, I'm giving this money and you guys spend it for us. We would encourage them to sort of get their employees, their teams involved into volunteering and be like, let's use your time and resource and help a nonprofit that aligns with, their foundation or their company's mission, vision, and values. So we, have that discussion with them. We understand where they really want to make an impact. And then what we're trying to say is if you want to give 100 rupees, you can actually create impact of way more than that by giving your time and skill. So, for example, if a CEO or the management of the company wants to do something, they can actually engage in more skill-based volunteering where they can like talk to the founders of nonprofit organizations on how to structure their organizations, how to think of a long-term plan, how to fundraise. The mid-level managers can work with the nonprofits on how to write better proposals to get, larger grants and things like that. And this is not very time intensive. It's like a 2-hour phone call between the founder and the managers at a company can really make this difference. And this is much more valuable and more long-term impact than giving that basic amount of donation, which they can give. And that comes to my second part. We have now recently started, I think, after focusing on volunteering for 9 years, we're slowly moving into the space of taking these grants, seeing where, not directly giving it to nonprofits because that's not really our forte, but because we have access to nonprofits, we work with 903 nonprofits across India. So just we know how they work, how different nonprofits and different causes work. We do a KYC with each of them. So I think every donor is basically just looking for authenticity when it comes to nonprofits. So I think people trust us when it comes to that. So because we have this know-how, what we started doing is in areas where there can be a significant difference can be made, along with some element of volunteering, we would also, take that money and look at implementing the project. So we're recently looking at, doing some school transformations entirely, where we will be setting up, certain infrastructure at government schools, as well as then setting up programs where people from the corporate can come in, run those programs with the students. So it's an end-to-end intervention that we will be running.
Right.
So that's where we're at now.
Right. And I think that's Shloka, that's been that, so I mean, I myself obviously have watched this closely, and I'll ask you who your favorite employee of all time is after this. But so the thing that I saw that, really sort of to me is a real USP of ConnectFor is that, let's say I'm looking at it again from the corporate's point of view, is they can come to you and say, look, this is what I need. And ConnectFor from start to end acts as a turnkey solution, right?
Yeah.
That you are an end-to-end solution. So, Shloka, can you talk about, do you do any, I mean, immediately does any particular project or, an individual case that you think you guys really did a great job in understanding what the client wanted and you could provide an end-to-end solution for that problem?
Sure. So actually, I think, what works really well for us is that when we engage with the corporates, we engage across a series of sessions. We understand exactly what it is that they want. And we are not looking usually at a one-time engagement. So most of our partners have been with us now for many years. I would say one of the examples that comes to mind immediately is with Tata Pro Engage. We've been working with them for a couple of years now. It started as a one-time project where they came to us and they were like, this is something that we want to do. We want to work with like education and we want to work in a specific NGO. And then we worked with them over the course of time where we now have, several hundreds of their employees who are volunteering with us regularly. And that really is what we hope to do, where we can take people who are passionate, companies that are passionate about certain causes and transform the way they look at that passion, so that they can also feel the impact. And even from like Amazon, for example, is another company that we've worked with that we think has been a really transformative experience for them and for us. Actually, the school transformation project that Maniti was referring to is one that we're working in collaboration with Amazon on right now, and we call it Amazon ArtShala. So basically, not only are we revamping the infrastructure in the schools for a longer term solution and more longevity for the students there, but we're giving the volunteers from Amazon the opportunity to come to the school, to paint the walls, to help in, so everyone can feel this mark that they're making. And so for me, I think these are some examples of companies that have come on board with one kind of expectation. And through the course of working with us, we've been able to really make it into a project rather than just like a one-off volunteering engagement, which is actually how a lot of these started. And so I think both from a company organization point of view, from the nonprofits point of view, and the ultimate beneficiaries point of view, it's a much more rewarding, a much more long-term solution. And that's really our tagline at ConnectFor is win-win for all. And so I really feel like now we've reached that space where we're delivering that.
And I mean, you can't praise yourself, so I will, because I genuinely think that you guys do a fantastic job of explaining that to corporates, right? That don't think of it as just this one-time thing that, you're just ticking a box, but think of it as something you can do on a much more sustained basis and have very real long-term impact. And because you mentioned ArtShala, which is a sort of flagship, project at ConnectFor. So can you explain what ArtShala is and how ArtShala has evolved over time? And specifically, if you can, I want you to focus on, the payoff. So for me, one of the most interesting things of ArtShala is there's such an immediate payoff for the volunteer, right? That he can immediately see the impact he has made. So can you talk about that?
So I'll start by telling you what the genesis of ArtShala was, and then Maniti can, jump in with all the facts and figures that she has. So basically, it actually didn't even start with ArtShala. There's a charity in South Bombay in Chopati called Salam Balak Trust. And for one of our Children's Day events or our anniversary event, I think, for the first year, we were like, we want to do something where all our volunteers who've been with us for the last year can come together and we can do something that's really exciting. They'll feel good about, we'll feel good about. And so Salam Balak actually let us have their wall. And they said that, look, our kids play here every day. We want it to be fun. We want it to be engaging. And, initially we were like, okay, that's so easy. People will come, they'll do whatever they want. And then their trustees were very clear with us, and they were like, listen, like, our kids have to see this every day. We're not okay with you guys coming and just doing whatever you feel like. And so that's when we started thinking about, like, wait, like, this is going to be much more long lasting than this one event we have where people are just going to come and paint things. And so we started getting artwork approved. We got artists on board. They like properly chalked out what they wanted to do, what each wall would look like. We would go to the nonprofit, be like, are you okay with this? Is this something that your kids will relate to? And they would be like, yes, okay, no, this is not nice. And we'd keep revising this to the point where we were like rendering, like interior designers being like, this is what your final wall would look like. And on the day, we went with like huge canvas paint, and this is involved lots of discussion being like, no, this is lead based and this is like this, and we need to go with chalk and all of that. So we've taken all our supplies and gone there. But what was amazing for us is that the kids were present when we were doing this. And they were so excited while we were doing it. They were like, oh, यहाँ पे आप ये बनाएंगे, oh, यहाँ पे stumps बनाना, हम cricket खेलेंगे और ऐसे बनाना. And we got so happy just seeing the immediate gratification. Every single volunteer who had come for that event to paint was like, this was the most amazing experience we've ever had. And so we were like, clearly painting things is a success. Let's do this again. And we went to train stations. And we did this at like train stations in Bombay. We had tied up with Mumbai First, I think is the name of the nonprofit. And we had done a train station, Bombay Central or somewhere.
No, Sanders Road, I think it was there. It was very close to our office.
Yeah, very close to our office. And again, same thing, like random people walking by would be like, thank you for doing this. And it means so much to us that you've done this. And it was so gratifying. And then we started thinking that, like, look, we are doing one wall. We're doing like one stretch of a train station. But how can we really improve this? At the same time, we were working on this particular issue of keeping children in school, because thanks to the Right to Education Act, everyone gets entry into school. But there's been a huge concern in India where children are dropping out, especially girls, as they reach, puberty and things like that. And a lot of research, thus far has done reports on this and things. A lot of research indicates that a lot of this is related to the infrastructure in schools. So, for example, girls were dropping out just because they didn't have good toilets to go to, right? And so, obviously, as a bootstrap non-profit startup ourselves, we couldn't be like, we're going to fund a whole school. But when we found partners who were willing to do this with us, we were like, you guys want the employee gratification, the employee engagement hours, which will come by you painting these schools. But we will get the satisfaction of actually upgrading this school. And then again, it's a win-win. The kids are happy, the management is happy, the corporate is happy, and it becomes a project that the corporate can adopt. So like you walk around being like, yeah, that school in Worli, that's mine. Like we did it. You have something to show to your stakeholders to put in your annual report being like, this is a school that's now much better because of us. And you have a very clear baseline. It's so easy to see how you've grown. And so for us, that was a really motivating factor, because truly in the spirit of win-win for all, there was nothing over here that was not working out. And Maniti will be able to elaborate a lot more on this, but we've done projects now across India in this. And each time I feel like it's been extremely successful for us.
Absolutely. I think each time, like from the first shelter home that we painted to now, I feel it's become like this full-fledged project at ConnectFor. Like if you come into the ConnectFor office and you say ArtShala, like there'll be like 5 people standing ready to like be like, okay, where, when, how, like we're ready to do this. Because I think it's the most engaging project for everybody involved. Like Shloka said, you see the kids are very happy. Like, come on, you go to school, we would all be happy. They're like white walls. The next day you come in and there's like trees and birds and ladders and snakes and ladders, and the artwork that we've seen on some of these walls is incredible.
You get professionals, right?
Yeah, we do. And we get professionals who also volunteer a lot of the time. So I think there's so much in the entire like workflow that goes into like getting an ArtShala, right up there. But there's tremendous impact. Like just talking about the Amazon ArtShala that we ran in 2022, this was just post COVID. I think a lot of the corporates were, trying to get people back to office, get people together, build that culture again, within their organizations, like get teams together and all of that. So Amazon ran their global month of volunteering sometime in August, September, and June they came to us like. Firstly, nobody knew when things would open, what the rules would be, and things like that. So they come to us in like end June, being like, okay, we want to do this like across India, 25 schools, 30 schools, how many ever you guys can. We want to engage like they engaged eventually 1,300 volunteers through this 1 month just through ArtShalas. I'm sure they did other projects and stuff as well. We impacted over 5,000 students and the volunteers, and we helped the NGOs save over 20 lakh rupees by these school transformations. So I think just those numbers speak for itself, and this is just an example of one corporate doing this over 1 month. So if we're doing this month on month across schools, the number of volunteers getting engaged every time we put up an ArtShala as a community event. Community events are basically weekend volunteering events for anybody to sign up to. It's like we reach max capacity in like a few days. So I think it's just such a lovely project. Now we've taken it a step forward. Besides just beautifying the school and putting educational material, on the walls and painting it, we're also looking at other requirements the school may have and trying to rope in our corporate partners to, help fund those, take sessions at the school and things like that. So now I think this ArtShala project has moved a little more away from art to more of a school transformation. So we've had schools come and tell us like, can you install a playground for us? Can you put water filters for us? So we do an in-depth, analysis with the headmaster of the school. What are their requirements in terms of teaching as well, in terms of infrastructure as well. They give us all those requirements, and then we seek partners again, playing the role of an aggregator and seeing whether anybody is willing to come in and help these schools with those requirements.
So I'm trying to understand very clear, tangible impact that ConnectFor has had. Are there things that you guys have measured to actually gauge what kind of impact you're having on the ground?
Absolutely. So there are two figures that I'd like to give you. One is actually three. We have 75,000 volunteers, people who volunteer through ConnectFor. We've had them save 15 crore, a little over 15 crore rupees for the non-profit organizations through the work that they've done. And this is by giving about 3,18,000 hours worth of volunteering. So this is how we're measuring the value of volunteering. So I think this helps people understand that they're making a real difference.
Yeah, I think that's so important, right? The minute you're in this space, like people want to feel like, the time and energy that they're giving, and of course money as well, if they are giving that there is very clear, tangible impact. And, I actually want to now ask you guys about your own personal experiences. In these 9 years, have there been specific moments that you can remember where you've seen the impact of something you've done, or just it could be, a fleeting thought also where you're like, this is why we started this organization. This is clearly what we wanted to achieve, and we have achieved it.
My God, there have been so many. I feel like every time we start getting jaded or like a little bit restless about what we're doing, we hear of another story of like transformation that's really changed our lives, changed their lives. For me, I think one personally that was really meaningful. It was very random, and when we started ConnectFor, Maniti and I used to answer the phone calls ourselves. So one of the things we realized pretty early on is that in India, it doesn't work if you just send an email saying you have matched with this NGO. Like people don't, they just ignore it. So we have a human interface that like calls the person up, being like, you've signed up. This is what you're interested in. This is for individual volunteering. This is what you're interested in. And, we're going to go ahead and connect you over here. Please look out for the email. It's like a 1 minute phone call or whatever, unless the other person wants it to be longer. But we used to do those calls ourselves. And I remember speaking to a lady a long time ago, maybe 4, 5, 6 years ago now, because you know how we would just randomly do the calls once in a while when we're training new people and things like that also. And I was like, hi, you've signed up and I'm going to go ahead and connect you to this children's shelter home. And she was like, okay, yes. And I'm pretty free, so I'm happy to give like 3 times a week and go ahead. And I was like, okay. And I really didn't think much of it. I went ahead, sent the email, connected them. A year later, we got an email both from her and from the nonprofit, and she actually wrote to us being like, I signed up to Connect for at a really low point in my life. My husband had just passed away. He had suffered from cancer for a long time, and I was really clueless about what to do to fill my time and fill my life. And now I get so much joy by being around these children, and you really like helped me when I didn't know where to go. And the nonprofit was like, literally, she's amazing and she's transformed it, and the kids love her. And I was feeling so good because that's the intention with which we had started Connect for. And the nonprofit wasn't like one of the major ones that you read about or anything. It was a small, they had maybe 50 kids, nothing major, but the change it had brought for both parties was so inspiring to me. And I just was like, this is why we need to do this. Even if we had one person every day, this is why we need to do this. So, that for me is one of those butterfly effect moments where you don't know the kind of effect you're having, but it really did develop into something much larger than any of us anticipated.
Yeah, I think for me, like Shloka said, there's something every day, every time we read a testimonial from an NGO, somebody, it feels amazing. And I think it's the smaller pieces which, when at the end of the year, when we go back and look at what we've done, um, like last year itself, we created impact worth of like 4 to 5 crores, which is amazing. And like to see this happening through corporates, through individuals, like I would like to again, I'm the numbers person here if you guys haven't figured this out already, but majority, I'd say like 50 to 60% of our volunteers are between the age group of 18 and 35. So that's the youth. To see them creating this kind of change is just amazing. It's like maybe it's because we attracted that age group of people because we were in our 20s when we
So
started
it's a
this.
tech
It's a
platform.
tech platform, whatever it is, but they're creating such powerful change. And when you read these like when I see these numbers, I'm like, wow, I didn't think like, that Google form and that MVP was going to lead to this kind of change. So every school we paint, every time we clean a beach, it feels great. And honestly, I think we've been able to bring about some cultural shift in volunteering in India, I would like to say. And I can say this because in 2015, when we started, the culture of volunteering in India was very different. And this you can say by talking to corporates, schools, students, but there's been a massive cultural shift in itself. So I think we were also a platform like ConnectFor was there at the right place at the right time, I think. So, because there are people who are looking to do things, but because of that, how do I get connected? How will I call so many numbers? So many websites of nonprofits are not updated. Then I have to call, then you don't get an answer. Now it's so easy to get connected that I think we've been able to, create this change. So for me, it's that change that we're making every day that really drives me
And
to do this.
honestly, Krish, it's been such a heartening journey because you can see someone who's not super skilled, like a 16-year-old like student or something like that, who wants to do something with her friends, who can go and clean up a beach. Cool, do that, no problem. But then you also have like groups that are really excited. Like just last year, we have worked with a group of, web designers and connected them to a like whole bunch of NGOs, and they just redesigned websites for all of them. And it was so like they were excited because they needed something for their portfolio. These nonprofits like had nothing on their websites. It was like one of those old dated web pages and things. And in today's day and age, when you have tools like Canva and anything, Chat GPT, you don't need to live like you don't. So I feel like that match or just bringing technology to people with good intentions has been such an empowering feeling for us because you really feel like you created something out of nothing.
I mean, I think just to add to that, it's not, there's obviously individuals who want to do this. There are corporates who also want to bring about this culture of volunteering within their organizations, but there are a lot of institutions. Like I think there's this institution IID. It's like they teach marketing courses and things like that. And we work with a bunch of these institutions, which has been a very recent thing that we realized because they also want their students to have an exposure or experience of learning through volunteering. So we worked with them with IID. We had a lot of their students create Google Grant, accounts and set up Google AdWords for the nonprofits, because Google gives them free, a Google Ad grant.
Yeah.
But most nonprofits don't know how to utilize that. So this was such a, like, going back to the win-win.
Yeah.
It was such a win-win, and they're being able to market themselves better just because of some students. So the whole ecosystem around volunteering, I think, is evolving a lot with institutions, schools, colleges, individuals, corporates. Everybody is looking at it as a way to help their employees or their students or create impact and learn at the same time. So I think that's what I mean when I say there's like a huge cultural shift in volunteering.
This point on the ecosystem, I've sat in meetings with you guys, and the thing that I think really struck a chord with, I mean, inevitably was a corporate at the other end, and I think the fact that you guys have this really well structured, well thought out plan. I don't just mean in terms of an individual project, but I mean in terms of creating that ecosystem, right? That there's technology involved, there's an entire system and plan in place to make things happen. And I actually want to talk about that because I think it's pivotal that if you look at non-profit spaces in more developed markets, a major sea change happens when people take a very almost business-like approach to that. So it's a business, except for, of course, a profit motive, but in every other aspect, it's a business. There's a proper plan, structure, organization in place. Can you guys talk about how and in your experiences, how important it has been that you have that very professional approach to a space that traditionally has been a sort of fairly lala, way of operating?
Look, I think it's been the game changer for us, honestly. And for me, that was really the biggest motivation in terms of recruiting Manati and being like, because I was very aware when we started that any money that I spend on ConnectFor is money that's not going to a nonprofit. And in order for me to justify that spend, it has to be more than worth it. And when we started, that's something we were very cognizant of, being like, we told everyone we're a non-profit startup. We're not an NGO, like we're not like just trying to run something. We're a non-profit startup. This is who we are. And this is the ethos with which we've built ConnectFor. Keeping that in mind, for us, it was always important that our impact was greater than our spend, that we were bootstrapped as far as we could be, that every employee that we took on came with this same attitude of understanding that, like, we're not here, there's no immediate beneficiary. You're not going to see a sort of like geriatric person feeling good because you looked after them, or you're not going to be able to teach a child to read. Not today, not at work. That's not what we're here for. At our office, it runs like a proper organization, and we have people from a variety of backgrounds, which works really well because everyone is bringing something to the table that's required in this pipeline. You don't have a whole group where everyone just feels like we're doing everything, like, oh, we just need to do everything we can to help. At the end of the day, you're looking at things from a cost point of view, from an effectiveness point of view, from an efficacy point of view, and all of that gets taken into the decisions we're making. So, like, we came to this decision on ArtShala, and you know this, Krish, you were consulting us on this long before we came to any of these decisions. We were thinking about what's the right way to grow. Like, once we started establishing that base of individual volunteers, we had our nonprofits, how do we improve from here? And we realized that ConnectFor can't grow unless our stakeholders are growing. And so then it became about improving that pipeline. And then it was like, we did a fairly good job, I think, of dividing our teams into supporting each stakeholder group. So we have a business development team, which looks at everything that the corporates need. We have an operations team, which was looking at everything that, nonprofits need. And a lot of time it was just handholding people in terms of how to fill a form, how to use a volunteer. Why don't you consider this? We've seen other NGOs doing this. But you have to be willing to I think look for the right talent. And right now we've realized that like people come and people go. So it's the processes that really matter.
Yeah.
Right.
Though I have to say, we've been very fortunate in terms of building our next level of management has been excellent. And really, they've been very loyal in this day and age compared to
Agreed.
other organizations. I can't complain, but I think the backbone of ConnectFor has been its processes, and a lot of that credit goes fully to Manati. But it's just always been more process driven and people driven. So it's not like anyone can come and be like, I feel really strongly about this cause. So this year ConnectFor will be devoting all its energy here. The idea is that no matter what people feel strongly about, we have a system and that system will be equipped to deal with that. And that system is something we've been, every time something has come up, whether it's been COVID, whether it's been, a change in terms of like the number of employees we've had, our office has changed. We've developed that system to work through that. So virtual volunteering, which now takes up a huge chunk of the kind of volunteering we do, was a definite byproduct of COVID. Like in March of 2020, when the world was locking down, we had a call and we were like, we don't know how long this is going to last. We need to find, and nonprofits can't shut down. They can't be like, sorry, everyone who's here, we can't serve you anymore. Like, see you whenever COVID is over. So we were like, how do we work with them right now?
Yeah.
What are the things they need right now, and how do we equip them? But it allowed us to pivot and to make something out of something that we never anticipated. Like we can't be like in 2015, we said virtual is the way to go. Remote volunteering is what we need. But in today's day and age, it's so easy. Now we have friends who are sitting in America who are like, we really want to do something for an Indian nonprofit. And thanks to COVID, we've been able to manage that, So I think being process driven and focusing on that, really, we have SOPs for everything. And we had this before ChatGPT was a thing. So we've literally sat down and written like, this is how it will go. This is a training manual for everyone. And we're very proud of those. Happy to share that IPR with anyone in this space who wants to do it. But I think that's really what it's been.
I agree. I think, like Shloka said, processes and impact. I think our vision was always to create impact larger than the money we were spending. So having that as your North Star, like you need to kind of ensure that you're doing this. And that brings me to the next point is that for that, we needed to ensure that we were collecting data, which is just not very present in this space in general. Like, it's like, okay, anecdotes of somebody feeling good. Generally, in the development sector, if you would read a bunch of annual reports, it's feel good stories. And of course, you are creating that level of change. But because we're not a grassroots level organization and we're working as an aggregator, I think numbers speak louder for us. And in 2017, when we started working with corporates, I think for us to be credible for them and to show them that, yeah, you're giving us 100 rupees or you're giving us this money, how are we creating value worth more than that? We needed to be data driven. We needed to figure out systems and processes on how to make the impact that we were creating tangible. And we eventually hope that this data, and again, I see a change within the
Yeah,
sector
it's already
regarding this. It's already happening. There are lots more organizations. There's an organization called India Welfare Trust, who's just recently done a report on volunteering in India, which were things we never saw 8 or 9 years ago. So, and we're part of that. We've given our data. There are other organizations giving their data. When all of this comes together, you can see how trends are happening. How can we create company level change, process level change, and eventually we're hoping there will be like, policy level change, which will impact the entire space of volunteering. So I think just, being data focused, impact focused, and process driven has really helped us be professional and helped us grow.
Honestly, when we started, Bain was the only one that did a report on philanthropy. And now it's great. And I think Dasra had a few, but they were more qualitative. But now it's so nice to see that everyone is looking at data. I really see that even in the proposals we receive for grants, that everyone is thinking about how they're going to measure their impact. Everyone is thinking about what data they're collecting. And then it's been lovely, I think. Again, in the cultural shift that we were mentioning, it's been really great to see that in the sector.
Yeah, it's a Dhoni approach, right? It's just process, process, process. Like don't the outcome will come. The point is you follow the process, it works in the end. Done a great job in explaining what Connect4 does, the impact it has. What I'm now trying to understand is where is Connect4 in the future? What are some either ambitions or plans that you guys have for the organization that you think can take it to an even more impactful that can make it even more impactful?
So I think, to begin with, we had a lot of ambition when we started Connect4. And the reason we called it Connect4 is because ultimately we were like people will connect for different reasons. They'll connect because they need it for their resumes, they'll connect because they want to do this. And it's now really grown into being a more encompassing, like anyone will connect for whatever they need type of thing. So in the immediate horizon, I would say for us the school transformation is something that we're focusing on very strongly. I would say for the next 3 years or so, working with corporates, leveraging that partnership, working with our individuals to supplement this further is something that we're really looking at, especially from this school transformation point. We're beginning urban. We will hopefully move into rural as well. For I would say for the short term, and then in the longer term, I think for us, really the sky is the limit. We're like happy to be wherever the need is, and for us, that's always been the case. We worked actually with an Australian company to even design an entire project for upliftment of an entire community. And we would be very, very happy in the future to be able to not only design those projects, but also to be the implementation partners for that. But we don't ever want to shift focus from encouraging, just individuals doing good work.
Yeah.
And so for us, as long as we're serving the nonprofits and we're figuring out a way that every person who comes to our platform finds a place to connect, we feel like that's a good job done. Above and beyond that, we want to build into the sector based on the needs that we see. For us, we've been really happy with all the collaborations we've undertaken, both with, like Manati mentioned, other nonprofits in the space like IWF and Dasha and things like that, but also with the corporates that we're working with and how to grow this and make it larger. But yeah, I think short term for us, this is the picture.
Yeah. Just to add to that, I think the way we've grown over the last 9 years has actually been on seeing opportunity within the three stakeholder groups. I don't think those three stakeholder groups are really going to change because that's where we're focusing, and our position as the aggregator is not going to change. So, wherever we see that need sort of growing, and right now, I think in the next 3 years, like Shloka mentioned, school transformation is definitely on the cards. Beyond that, we've already explored and started doing our groundwork on projects like solar shala. So now getting schools to be solar paneled entirely. It's also one of the government objectives. So seeing how our three stakeholders play into this whole thing. Random research point is that lot of schools just in Maharashtra, the electricity bill hasn't been paid, and like you can't shut the school down. So what are you going to do? So obviously this is one sort of proposition. It's like a one-time CSR investments for companies and things like that. So it's something we're playing around with, seeing how the implementation for it would go, what the impact would be. So maybe that would be the next step. I don't know. So we're like, really seeing what's happening in the sector, what the need is really, doing our research and due diligence around that. But I think volunteering will always be the core of what we do, promoting that, building that culture. I think that's always sort of going to be there. But I think we've really grown from that. Like we're capacity building our nonprofits through webinars, which was also an outcome of COVID. So I think COVID also really helped us pivot and think deep into, what we can do, how can we engage our stakeholders, and going forward, that's I think the same way we'll continue to grow through conversations with our stakeholders and understanding their needs.
And Krish, we've been so lucky. You've been in our office. Our team is a small, lean team. So obviously it's more than 4 people now, which is, we started with 2, then 4, we're about 20 now. But everyone is so open to change.
Agreed.
And that's really been like the culture, the vibe that we wanted to encourage. So whenever the chance presents itself, like we want to be present, we want to make the most of it.
I agree. I mean, both points on the culture within the organization, but also on the larger point of, scale. I mean, I've seen it, right? From
Yeah.
where to where. It's, I mean, it's a, exponential rise in terms of impact that you guys have, and the scale of projects that you guys are doing. I'm going to end by putting both of you on the spot. I want to ask both of you, and that what has been your favorite aspect about working with each other, and what are one or two qualities that you particularly admire in the other?
It's very easy for me. Honestly, like I think working with Maniti was the number one best decision that I made. And we're related, we went to school together, we've known each other our whole lives. But it's very difficult, I think, to find that combination of someone who's so dedicated, so reliable, but also entrepreneurial. Like Manati's never shied away from taking a risk, but she's sort of always been the one to be like, let's just figure out how we're going to take this risk. We'll do it, but let's figure out how we're going to do it. And I could trust her with my eyes shut. And I feel like now that we've been working, I feel like we grew up with the same values, which helps a lot in terms of what we're looking to achieve. And so now I feel like, at least for me, I can trust her entirely to make a decision which would be the same that I would make. So I never, if Manati is in the office, I don't have to worry whether or not I'm in the office, because I know that she's coming and thinking from the same place that I am. So in a lot of ways, I think she's like the most reliable, most committed and hardworking person ever.
Thank you. No, I think for me it was like Shloka, I think we trust each other, and I didn't know we would have that working equation. And honestly, when we came into this, a lot of people were like, are you sure you want to work with or start something with someone you know? A lot of people have that apprehension, but I think it was very easy from like day one. She's very honest. She will tell you exactly what she wants to do and what she wants to achieve. And then my brain starts going, but how are we going to do this? I think she definitely has a larger vision and can a greater foresight than I do. Maybe I focus on the smaller things. I think we really complement each other in that sense. Like I will probably think about, like, when you ask the question of what's your 3-year vision, she definitely had a longer term plan than I did. I'm like, okay, how are we going to figure this year out? How are we going to meet this year's goals? So I think we're thinking in two very different dimensions, which really works for us. But at the same time, we're on the same page. And I think after working together for so long, it's very easy to know how the other person is going to respond. Like sometimes I'll just ask her a question, but I know what the answer is going to be. So I think we have that very good working relationship.
Lucky.
Maybe we're lucky, but I think it was just more about somebody who's so transparent, very easy to work with, and who has she knows what she wants at the outcome, the end outcome. Like there have been times that I've been like, no, we should, move into this and let's build an app and let's do this. And she's always brought us back to, where we need to be. So I think that's what's been great.
No, I actually wholeheartedly agree with both your answers, and that is the perfect combination, right? You have somebody who thinks big picture, and there's also somebody. Sometimes you need that second person to bring the other person back down to earth, but also you need somebody who's really nuts and bolts oriented, right? That real sort of day to day, making sure the trains run on time. Thank you so much, both of you, for taking the time. I really did enjoy it, and it's always fascinating having conversations on things that people don't necessarily think about regularly, but I think are so important for people to think about. So thanks again for taking the time.
Thank you for having us. Really took us down memory lane and things. So like thinking about the last 9 years. So
we're also gonna go home feeling so good.
So thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you.